Here's a weird truth about solo indie game development that nobody warns you about. The better you get at making games, the harder it becomes. That sounds kind of backwards, right? Like, you'd think that learning more would make the process quicker and easier. We work so hard to get better at coding, art, music, game design, whatever it is, all so we can eventually make games faster. But in reality, that's not what ends up happening, because once you learn the tools, once you learn what great game design actually looks like, suddenly you start seeing all the ways you might mess it up. You start seeing flaws in everything, your ideas, the systems you design, in yourself, and that's where game dev gets scary. You'd think becoming a more knowledgeable dev would give you confidence, but a lot of the time it just makes you fear creating. You fear starting something the wrong way, or wasting your time. You fear building something for years that doesn't live up to the image you have in your head. So you give up. You start over once again from scratch. You chase the next perfect idea, hoping that this one will be the one that finally works. But unfortunately, the cycle doesn't end there. And the worst part, you start to believe maybe you're not cut out to be a game dev. If this sounds at all familiar to you, the good news is that you're not alone. A lot of people assume perfectionism just means spending forever polishing your game. You might picture someone tweaking lighting or redrawing a sprite over and over and over again until it's virtually flawless. That's not really what perfectionism is, at least not for the vast majority of us. For most solo devs, perfectionism doesn't stop you from finishing your game, it stops you from starting it in the first place. It tricks your mind into thinking every little detail and idea has to be airtight from the beginning. It convinces you that unless you make a perfect prototype, you're just wasting your time. I'll give you an example from my own experience. It's hard to even admit it, but I've restarted my own project Reality Box probably over 10 times in the past year. It started as a platformer, then a tactics RPG, then a visual novel. Every time I'd start to get somewhere with the game, I'd second guess myself and start to doubt my ideas. This led to me restarting the project countless times before I'd even play tested anything. The reality of the situation, although it felt like each new version of the game was genuinely better than the last, there is no end to this cycle. Game ideas don't start by already being great. There is no such thing as a perfect prototype. Great games are molded through vigorous iteration and experimentation, always chasing what's fun first. Any of those directions I was taking Reality Box in could have been great eventually. I just wasn't letting any of them cook. I was scared of investing years into an idea that might not work, only to end up with years of wasted time not picking an idea and actually seeing it through to the end. If you've been following my channel over the past couple years, you've probably heard me talk about my struggle with scope creep. I used to genuinely believe that the only reason I'm not finishing my games is because I'm making the scope too wide and ambitious. That's the mindset I told myself for years. If I just made my scope smaller from the start, I wouldn't be overwhelmed by the game I'm making. So next time, the game will be smaller and focused. Lately, I don't think that's the problem. Because these days, I'm not expanding my scope at all. I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid that the game will be too small and boring, and I'm also afraid of making it too big that it's unmanageable. I'm afraid that I'll build something that doesn't give me the same wonder and excitement that my own imagination has created. That fear, it paralyzes you. It makes you sit there staring at a game that exists only in your head, judging every decision you might make before you've even tried making it. It convinces you that every decision going forward needs to be perfect. Otherwise, the whole thing won't be good enough. That's the real enemy, not overscoping, not bad ideas, just fear. Fear of committing to the wrong idea, losing months or even years of time on something that might just be bad. So, how do we push through that fear? First and foremost, being aware of what's holding you back is the biggest hurdle. If you know that your main struggle with making games is your own self-doubt and perfectionism, that's the first step to taking control of that and doing something about it. Look, I'm not going to pretend I've got all the answers, but I do have a few things that have genuinely helped me shift my mindset and pushed me towards making real progress in finishing the games I've started. The first one being, stop trying to make a great video game. Just try finishing one. You want to know what's the worst thing that can happen to a perfectionist game dev? It's realizing their game might actually be good. Because the second you realize the potential of what you're making, the second it starts to feel like this could be the game that changes everything for you, That's when the pressure hits you like a truck. Suddenly, every little design choice feels massive. Every single mechanic needs to be balanced. Every asset needs to look clean. The story needs to flow perfectly with all the other aspects of your game. You start overthinking every script, every pixel, every line of dialogue. Before you know it, you're frozen again. You're no longer experimenting. You're not building something out of excitement. You're just trying your best not to screw it up. So the only thing you can do is to stop trying to make a great game. As weird as it sounds, taking the pressure of making something great off of your shoulders is the only way to push through those tough moments in development where you inevitably doubt yourself. At the end of the day, a flawed but finished game is infinitely more valuable than an incomplete masterpiece that never sees the light of day. The next tip is simple, but honestly one of the hardest to follow. Don't drop an idea until you've play tested it. And I don't mean wait until it's pretty enough. Some ideas don't need to be taken that far. I mean just test whatever version you've got as soon as humanly possible, even if it's ugly. Because after you've worked on a game long enough, something strange happens. Whether you like it or not, you'll eventually stop seeing the thing that makes it fun. You stop feeling that spark that got you excited about the idea in the first place. All you see are problems, the flaws, the ways it's not matching up to your vision. It's around this point that you start to convince yourself that this version of your game isn't worth finishing. Here's the thing, every project hits that wall. Every single one. There's no avoiding it. And the only way to break through it is by actually playing what you've made. Because the second you hand it to someone else, they're getting their first experience with the idea that you initially fell in love with. We grow to hate our ideas because we spend way too much time with them. The only way to remember why we loved them is to see through the lens of somebody experiencing our ideas for the first time. Remember this, you'll always be your game's biggest critic. Share your work with others, and you might find the reasons you loved it in the first place. Finally, one of the most underrated ways to fight perfectionism is structure. You've heard it before, but let's be honest, it's the holy grail of creative advice. Make firmer deadlines and actually stick to them. Deadlines are talked about so often to the point where we forget why we even have them. Because when you're a perfectionist solo game developer, absolutely everything feels open-ended. You'll tweak a system forever. You'll redraw the same asset 10 times, and you'll keep telling yourself that you'll move on once it's better. In reality, better never comes, because better is a constantly moving goalpost. Each version might be better than the last, but there's no ceiling to art. You'll never stop this cycle by continuing it. Deadlines, however, are the only way to cut through that fog. They force you to accept your imperfections. They give you a reason to say, although this could be better, it's time to move on. I really saw this struggle in myself when it came to art. Whenever I drew an asset, I'd always come back to it a month later thinking I could do better because I'd improved as an artist. But then I'd do it again a month later, then a couple months after that. I was really just stalling, hiding in the safety of polish. What did end up helping, however, was setting small, honest deadlines with myself. Like, this asset needs to get done today, and I won't be touching it again. Or this mechanic needs to be done by the end of the month, and I can't do anything else until it's play tested. Putting these restrictions on yourself sounds scary at first, but you'll realize that the dopamine hit you get from finishing something is way better than how you feel after redrawing the same asset for the 12th time. And hey, the truth is, your game doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to exist. You gotta get it there. So if you're feeling stuck right now, paralyzed by doubt, scared of choosing the wrong idea, frozen by the pressure of making something great, just know that you're not broken. You're not falling behind, and you're certainly not alone. You're just facing the same battle that every creative person does. But the difference between those who dream about making games and those who actually finish them, it's not talent. It's not even ideas. It's the ones who keep going, even when you doubt yourself, even when it's scary. You don't need to make a masterpiece. You just need to make. Your game deserves to exist, so let it. I've been Apox Fox. Subscribe for more game dev videos every month, and I'll see you soon. Peace.